Great. Well, let's get started. Thanks for joining us today for the Great Wealth Transfer, something we'll spend this next 20, 25 minutes going over. We don't have a lot of time today. We like to keep these pretty tight and short. So if you have questions, feel free to reach out. You'll also be getting a follow-up email once we complete the webinar today. And if you have any specific questions, please send us an email and let us know, and we'll get those addressed as well. Just a quick housekeeping. This is purely educational and informational. If you have specific questions about how the concepts we talk about today may apply to you, feel free to reach out to us and let us know. And we're happy to spend some time with you, your tax professionals, your estate planning professionals, and work through how some of these elements might apply specifically to you. A little bit about me, my background: started my career on Wall Street, worked for Goldman Sachs and Deutsche Bank on the investment banking side, and learned two really important things about me. One is I like to do things that I feel has an impact. And you can argue an M&A transaction, an IPO definitely has an impact, but not the kind of impact that I like to have in terms of working with families and individuals to help them make good decisions with their money. The second thing that I learned is that it's really beneficial to understand the markets, and utilizing that to bring an institutional quality of advice and service to our clients is really what we strive to do. A little bit about our firm. The first thing is we structured TM Wealth Management. Wanted to make sure it was independent. Working at large financial institutions, they have multiple goals and objectives they're trying to accomplish, both from clients, investors, shareholders. They really have a lot of competing interests. Being independent allows us to have a sole focus, and that's our clients. Secondly, it was important that we created something boutique, where we can spend more time with our clients than really being focused on volume, the number of clients. And so spending that quality time, understanding what's important to our clients and helping them achieve the goals that they have. Third, it was important that we looked at everything. All too often, advisors have blinders on and only focus on the area that they have visibility into. For us, we want to coordinate all aspects of our clients' financial lives and look at wealth management, not just investment management. And then lastly, the structure under which we operate, we think is important. We chose to operate under the fiduciary standard within the financial services industry. That puts our clients at the center of what we do and really gives us that legal obligation, that fiduciary responsibility to do what's in our clients' best interest. Great, so let's jump in. So many of you may remember back in the late 1990s, Shaquille O'Neal, one of the dominant players in the NBA, signed a $120 million 7-year contract with the Lakers. It's one of the largest contracts at the time, and Shaq was very excited and quickly, when he got to LA, went out and spent a lot of money buying cars and homes. And ultimately, his agent had to call him and say, "Hey, Shaq, you're spending way too much money. You're out of money." And he'd spent based on what his contract value was, not what his take-home pay was. So as we all know, it's not what you make, it's what you keep. And that was an interesting lesson for Shaquille to learn. And he's now taken his knowledge of finance and really built an empire, right? With his commercials, his ownership in Papa John's Pizza, and really taken those financial lessons he learned as a NBA player and really built an empire. So it's not what you make, it's what you keep. And I think one of the things for all of us to understand is within our current financial and governmental structure, there's a disconnect between what our government takes in and what we receive, and how they spend it, right? So this looks at, the red line is the spending line, and the blue line is revenues. And we take in about 17% of US GDP, or gross domestic product, and we spend about 23%. And you can see that that gap is projected to widen. And so what do you think is going to happen? Either we're going to continue to run deficits and increase the national debt, or we're going to have to raise revenues. And how does our federal government raise revenues? They raise taxes. And so tax planning is an important element in overall understanding of how to make good financial decisions and make sure that you keep more of what you earn. One of the key things that's coming is over the next 20 years, there is going to be a significant wealth transfer from the silent and baby boomer generation to the next generation, Generation X, the millennials. That $86 trillion of transfer is going to happen over the next 20 years. And it may be happening in a way that the recipients may not be prepared, but also those transferring the silent and baby boomer generations may not understand the tax implications of those transfers. And so as you look at that, right, $84 trillion is transferring. 55% of that's going to go to millennials and 41% of that might go to Gen Z over the next 5 years. So significant wealth transfer. And the challenge is that many Americans are not ready to inherit a lot of money. And a statistic put out by Citizens Bank is 72% are not confident they could manage, of Americans could not manage a windfall on their own, right? And only a third said they would seek professional advice if they received $1 million or more. So one, they're not prepared for it, and very few, or only a third, would actually ask for some help. And so this is where we want to start doing some planning, right? Get a game plan for how this transfer is going to happen to make sure that there aren't unintended consequences and that the wealth that you transfer or receive has the impact that you care about. And so we think about why planning, right? A lot of people think, well, if something happens to me or my assets, doesn't everything go to my spouse or my kids? How do I preserve more money for my heirs is another reason you want to plan. Do I have the right beneficiaries on my accounts, right? Should you make your kids beneficiaries of your IRAs or maybe a charity, or should your spouse or the trust, right? Really thinking about how the beneficiaries are going to be structured. Who knows where all my stuff is? You know, if something happens to me, how do people know how to get access to everything that I have? And who gets what when I'm gone, right? Doesn't it just happen and people just, get what I said? Hey, Junior gets this and my daughter gets this. Is it not just what I say? Would a trust make sense to me? And who should I set up as my trustee? If I'm out of it, right, you're still alive, but you're not either in a coma or you are not able to make decisions. Who's going to make those while you're still alive? And then lastly, if you have younger kids, who's going to take care of my kids? And so really thinking about why plan, it's really about making sure that the people and causes you care about most are taken care of. And ultimately, it's that peace of mind. Hey, if something happens to me or my family or my spouse, we know the family's going to be taken care of, or the people and causes I care about are going to get the resources that I want them to get. So your estate plan is your last demonstration of love to those you leave behind, right? Hey, I've run into situations helping clients work through their parents' finances after they've gone. And some of it's very frustrating, a big burden, because like, well, I don't know where stuff is. I don't know what mom and dad wanted. And I'm trying to balance, my siblings and what they want and understanding where things are. And it can be a real challenge. And then I've seen other clients where parents really tied things up with a nice, neat little bow with letters of instruction. And it really allows the family to gel together with those relationships. And so really understanding what outcome, what impact you want your resources to have. So when we think about estate planning or this wealth transfer planning, understanding what your estate is, right? It really is your assets minus your liabilities. That's your estate. That's what's ultimately going to transfer to your heirs. And then estate planning is more than just, hey, I have a will. It's really having a game plan for how you want to manage taxes, how you're going to transfer the assets, and what impact you want those resources to have. And so estate planning really encompasses financial, retirement, business succession, charitable, medical, disability, legacy, and gift planning. That's why as wealth advisors, we focus on this because it encompasses everything that we do for our clients. Because if you sit down with a trust and estate attorney, the first thing they're going to ask you is, do you have enough to retire? How much is going to be left over? And how are things titled? These are all things that we go through. And so when you think about estate planning, it's really who needs what and in what areas, right? So everyone should have, beneficiary designations, assets titled correctly, a will, power of attorney, and advanced medical directives. Most people will need some form of life insurance, and some might need trusts and more comprehensive estate tax planning. And as we think about an estate plan, right, what can a properly crafted estate plan help me do? Avoid probate, right? This is a court ordered process. If you don't have a clear estate plan, assets go through probate. And the average time to get assets through probate in Virginia is about 14 months, 14 to 16 months. So that can take a long time. It allows you to maintain control over an estate, reduce estate and potentially income taxes. You can protect your spouse and your children from creditors, protect the inheritance from creditors, and a big one is divorce, right? If you gift assets to kids, they could potentially, if they're married, a divorce might make those assets a marital asset versus a trust can keep it as an asset just for your child. Prevent delays as related to the estate and reduce disagreements among heirs. So as you think about what is needed, kind of a basic estate plan to distribute the estate as your will and potentially a revocable living trust. While you're still living, disability planning deals with financial power of attorney, medical power of attorney, and advanced medical directives and a living will. Now, why is this important, right? We talked about estate or taxes, and an estate tax, one of the key things to be aware of is currently the estate tax exclusion amount is $15 million. So if your estate is below $15 million, it's not subject to estate tax. There still may be some inherited or income tax for the heirs when they receive these and spend them. But from an estate tax, if your estate is below 15 million and 30 million as a married couple, you're not subject to the 40% estate tax. Also, on an annual basis, you can gift $19,000 to as many people a year as you want and not have that reduce your estate tax exclusion amount and also not be subject to estate or gift tax. The other thing to be aware of is where you live, right? So many states have an estate tax and an inheritance tax. So what we were talking about before here with the estate tax, this is on the federal level, a 40% estate tax on the federal level and $15 million exclusion. Within certain states, they have their own state estate tax. And then they also have an inheritance tax. So they tax the people receiving the funds. So if you're looking kind of the key area where I am based out of the Washington, D.C. area, Virginia has neither an estate tax or an inheritance tax, but D.C. and Maryland has both an estate tax and an inheritance tax, and D.C. has an estate tax. Now, there are also subject to certain exclusions, and so you want to be aware, but if you are going to be inheriting, maybe over time, maybe switch your location so you're not subject to these state inheritance taxes or estate taxes. So 7 things that could help you reduce taxes. One is make sure you and your spouse make full use of your exclusion amount. And you can do that before you die, right? You can use irrevocable trusts to take advantage of that $15 million exclusion amount. We've had clients that are concerned that Congress might change that exclusion amount, so they want to utilize it now. And there's structures and ways that you can do that. Establish a gifting program, right? If you're above that state exclusion amount, you can gift $19,000 a year to as many people as you want and not lower that exclusion amount and not be subject to estate tax. Look at donating assets to charity. That's when we talked about your IRAs, right? Maybe a portion of your IRA is donated to a charity because they don't pay taxes, and that donation then doesn't hit any income tax. There might be a need to put life insurance policies in a trust. Might maybe place a residence in a trust. Maybe form a family limited partnership to hold some of these assets and use it as a gifting vehicle. And then leverage your generation skipping transfer tax exemption. So a lot of elements that you can utilize. The goal is to make sure you have a plan for this estate tax transfer. And if you're one of the beneficiaries of this, make sure you understand what is coming and what your either parents or whoever's transferring these assets to you, what impact, what goals they want these assets to help you achieve. Now, as we look at what are the best assets for wealth transfer, life insurance. I often say that the life insurance agency has the best lobbyists because they never show up on the options for taxing, right? Life insurance still is tax-free. Cash, securities, non-IRA, non-401k, right? Those are great because you get a step up in basis if you hang on to those securities. Real estate, and the reason real estate's a little bit below securities is because real estate has a lengthier transfer process. And you also need to make sure that you've titled those assets appropriate for asset transfer. Roth IRAs and 401ks, right? Those transfer, those do create tax-free income, but they do have to be liquidated over a 10-year period now. Traditional IRAs and 401ks, the reason they're at the bottom is because those are tax-deferred assets, and anybody that receives those, inherits those, is going to have to liquidate or remove those assets from the traditional IRA, pay taxes over a 10-year period. So something to be aware of. Lastly, I want to spend a little bit more time on a specific wealth transfer strategy that we utilize. It's something we're referred to as Kaizen. It's a life insurance strategy where you can leverage your life insurance to, one, get more life insurance, deal with more assets getting transferred tax-free, and helping your beneficiaries. Because one of the challenges when you think about, if we go back to the slide where we talk about the preparation, right? This slide here, where we said 72% of Americans are not confident they could manage a windfall, and very few would say they would seek professional advice. So what do, right? We talk with clients all the time. If you name your kids or someone individually as a beneficiary of an asset, they receive that asset. You now no longer have any control over it. If you use a trust, you might be able to have some control over that asset once you transfer it to the beneficiaries. But if they receive that inheritance, especially the $86 trillion we're talking about, that's going from the silent generation to the baby boomer generation, once they receive that asset, they can do whatever they want with it, right? They can buy cars, buy country club membership, and it can go and disappear. And it doesn't have the intended benefit that some of the folks want it to have, meaning give them some financial stability throughout the remainder of their life. Give them an asset or an income stream that will help them do things in their life maybe they otherwise couldn't, maybe staying home with kids or building that pool or getting a better house or whatever it might be. If you give them a lump sum, they can spend it and it's gone. The Kaizen strategy that I'll review with you now is utilizing life insurance and leveraging that so you get more life insurance and creating a structure that provides tax-free income and benefits. So specifically what you would look at here, this is for I believe this is for a 28-year-old individual and a 5-year annual contribution of $22,000 a year. So you see these little piggy banks, the orange ones are the contributions that our clients would make to this policy. At the same time, the policy could go out and leverage or borrow, much like you do with a house, right? Most of us put 10, 20% down when we buy a house and we go finance the rest. That allows us to get more house with less cash. The Kaizen strategy is very similar, right? You are going to put $22,000 a year down. That's $110,000 over a 5-year period, but then we're going to leverage to get double that over a 10-year period. And you can see these little green piggy banks are what a loan would then put into the life insurance policy. And you'll see one green piggy bank for the first 5 years, and the remaining 5 years, you'll see two. Because over the first 5 years, you're putting money in. When we get to year 6, the bank or the loan then puts double in. So we're making payments for 10 years, but the policy owner is only making payments for 5 years, and we're using that leverage. And so what you can see here is the contribution over a 10-year period is $110,000. That's what you would put in. The lender contribution over the first 5 years would be another $20,000. But then we get these last 5 years, years 6 through 10, they'd be putting in $41,000. So you'd be putting a total of $420,000 into a life insurance strategy. And this is a permanent life insurance strategy, not term. And it also provides some growth. It's linked to the markets, but there's zero downside exposure. And so this little box over here, benefits and distributions by age. Let me make that a little bit bigger. So if we look at this, age 28, once you put this policy in place, there is now $1 million death benefit. So if this is a young father who has family that he wants to take care of, You as the beneficiary are transferring $22,000 a year, but they're getting $1 million life insurance policy. Additionally, once they get to age 65, now they can potentially take out about $150,000 a year for 25 years. Think about that, right? And this is a policy loan, so now it's tax free. And they can use that for kids' education, they use that for retirement. They can obviously pull it out a little bit sooner, it'd be a little bit less, right? But at age 65, now with a starting investment, you are now transferring assets to them tax free and giving them a security blanket that if something were to happen to them, now they know their family's going to get this $1 million benefit. And so if we look at the overall death benefit after they've taken out these policy loans, they're still going to have a $1.6 million benefit. This is really powerful if you think about, hey, I want to give something to my beneficiaries. I want to give them something that will last a lifetime, be tax efficient, and give their family some protection. It's really a powerful strategy, and you can run different scenarios, different ages, different contributions. This is really kind of the minimum contribution at 22,000, but you can utilize that as a starting point. And really, when you get done with our webinar today, you're going to get an email. There'll be a link there where you can dig into this more specifically. There'll be videos, run scenarios, sliders, different ages. Really get familiar with this strategy. One of the key elements to this, if you've ever dealt with premium financing life insurance, is people get concerned, well, now I'm going to have to go through a credit check and I'm going to have to put up collateral and I've got to have $1 gazillion to qualify. Kaizen is a unique strategy where the policy that you are putting in place is the collateral. And so you don't have to deal with credit checks and collateral and those types of things. The policy is the collateral. So it's a really unique strategy, something we're seeing a lot of success with as we look at this great wealth transfer. And just wanted to highlight that strategy because as we talk about, hey, this is coming, you need to do some estate planning, those are all key elements. But then we talk about, okay, how do I now tax efficiently accomplish some of the goals that I want to have and the impact I want to have to the beneficiaries, right? Give them an asset. This life insurance is an asset that's going to last them a lifetime. Do it tax efficiently. Give them something they can't pull the full benefit out of and waste it, but help them accomplish some of the things in their lives that give them a little bit more flexibility and freedom. And that's what this Kaizen policy can help you do. Okay, great. We've covered a lot from the great wealth transfer to taxes to estate planning to a specific strategy. What do we do with this now? And it really comes down to having a process. And this is what we work through when we sit down with our clients is really help them implement the process so they have that complete confidence and security and peace of mind that everything is taken care of. First is we need to spend some time identifying what's important to you, what impact you want your wealth to have on the people and causes you care about most. Second, define your approach to the planning, right? Determine your risk tolerance. Work with your other advisors. We want to collaborate and really coordinate all of your other advisors, whether it's an additional banker, tax accountant, your attorneys, business partners, really coordinate all of that and develop an approach, a tax approach and planning approach to all of your assets. Third is decide how you're going to distribute your wealth, right? Is this going to be over time or is it going to be, while you're still living or after you're dead? Really think about and what kind of tax impact do you want to have? And then keep your plan current, right? Everybody, we develop these plans and we all know nothing goes as planned, but it's helpful to have that plan to have a baseline as things change. Make sure you're adjusting. A lot of the documents we talked about today and strategies are dynamic and we can make those adjustments on the fly and on a regular basis. Additionally, reach out to us with some of our resources, right? We have some estate planning conversations. You'll get a link to that Kaizen strategy. We can learn a little bit more, run some scenarios, take inventory of what you have. We have an asset inventory worksheet, and then also we have a beneficiary audit. This is really important because you want to make sure that if you do estate planning, that you get the benefit from the planning that you've done. Too often we sit down with prospective clients and we ask them, hey, have you done any estate planning? So, oh yeah, definitely. Check that box, that's done. We say, great, can we see it? And they pull it out from this dirty drawer or under the bed and they blow off the dust and like, yeah, here it is. And as we go through it, we realize that none of their assets are in the trust or have been retitled to put them in the trust. So going through a beneficiary audit, thinking if something happens to me, who gets the IRA, who gets the house, who gets, whatever your assets are, and really understanding that will help make sure that the assets you have go to the people and causes you care about most, and also give you the peace of mind that what you've structured is going to get implemented. The great wealth transfer is real. It is happening. And what's happening is people are receiving more money than they are accustomed to, and they are unprepared. So make sure that if you are the one doing the transferring, that you prepare them. Work with your advisors, work with us if you don't have any, so we can help prepare to make sure that your assets have the intended consequences. And then if you're the one potentially as a beneficiary receiving those assets, understand the game plan. Spend time not just understanding the dollars, but what is the impact that those resources should have. And make sure you understand the dynamics of and the structure for how those assets are going to be received, so you can do some tax planning yourself to make sure more of those resources go to you than some unintended consequences, meaning taxes or potentially having bad relationships with family and siblings because there wasn't a clear plan. In the end, money helps us make better financial decisions. The better financial decisions we can make, the better impact the money will have. And if we can be helpful to you on that journey, we'd love to spend some time with you. Hopefully this has been helpful. If you'd like copies of the slides or have specific questions or anything we can do to be helpful, feel free to reach out to us. I know there'll be some outreach to you, either to schedule some time or make sure that you've got the information you need to make good financial decisions. Thanks for joining us. Have a great rest of your day.